Welcome everybody, and welcome back for those of you returning. It's Money Talk Tuesday. I'm Shaitia Spruill, and I'm with the Office of Economic Empowerment, joined by Danielle, Sharon, and Michelle to talk about making 2021 your best financial year. All right, this is our agenda. This is what we will be covering today. We will go over welcome, obviously we're doing that now. Go over some information about OEE, some housekeeping, and then we'll jump right into our presentation. So the Office of Economic Empowerment, if you don't know, is a department within the Office of the Treasurer and Receiver General of Massachusetts, tasked with supporting, advocating, and facilitating policies that empower all Massachusetts residents. Our programs serve women, families, high school students, veterans, and seniors, and our priorities include financial education, closing the race and gender wage gap, racial equity, college affordability, and promoting STEM education. So quick disclosure, just so you know, this is a Zoom webinar. We are recording. We are also on Facebook Live. The recording may be uploaded onto a public site for future use. Any information shared through the question functions will be anonymous, but please note the chat record is subject to public record laws and as such is not anonymous. And some quick events that are happening. February 24th, tomorrow, OEE is launching our Equal Pay MA Roundtable series in highlighting the Asian American and Pacific Islander Equal Pay Day. That starts at 11. You can always go to our event page, find us on Facebook. We have an Eventbrite. You can sign up through any one of those channels, and I'll make sure to drop it in the chat. March 9th is our next Money Talk, and we'll be joined by Zero Debt MA and La Vida Scholars to talk about paying for school. March 10th, Building Black Wealth is hosting their series, and it's titled, this particular session is titled Lifestyle Management, Don't Just Look Rich and Famous. And finally, our March 23rd Money Talk is going to be completely in Spanish, discussing programas de mass housing, and that's just all the mass housing programs. Kind of a repeat of our July session. So if you didn't catch that one, it's on our YouTube page, and I'll make sure to drop that link in the chat. If you have any questions, again, I will make sure our email is available, and let's get on to it. So Danielle, take it away.
Yes, wonderful. Thank you so much for hosting us today, Shatia. It's wonderful to be here. And I am Danielle Pescado, the Executive Director at Budget Buddies. So I'm just going to provide a quick introduction of Budget Buddies and then pass it over to my colleague who's going to lead our part of this presentation. So Budget Buddies is working to build the financial resilience and health of women that are living on low incomes by providing the knowledge and also the peer connection and support that's needed to feel more empowered about their ability to successfully manage their money and achieve greater financial stability. We do that by bringing together small cohorts of women from similar backgrounds, matching each woman in the program one-to-one with a volunteer coach that works with them to set a financial goal from the onset of our program. And then they, with their coach, attend a series of workshops over a period of 3 to 6 months. So it's comprehensive. There are usually between 12 to 14 workshops in our programs that cover all the topics related to banking, budgeting, understanding credit, but also go beyond that to really delve into topics related more holistically to eating healthy on a budget, to understanding wants versus needs, which we'll discuss a little bit more, and importantly, covering vision boarding to really set a clear picture for all the reasons why we want to be financially stable in our lives. So we're happy to provide more information, and there's a contact us page at the end. But for now, I am going to pass it over to my colleague, Sharon Armour, who is going to walk us through the importance and tips and tricks around savings.
Hi, everyone. Like Danielle, I would say we're very excited that OEE has invited us to be part of this. And we love the opportunity to share even a small part of our comprehensive program with you if you find it helpful. So thanks for joining us. And we'll get right into the information about saving. Why do savings? It's something that's going to get you from surviving to thriving, moving you from here to there, moving you from a situation where you are just managing your standard of living and occasionally addressing, trying, to address any unanticipated challenges that you may have. And you want to move from that to a life where you are developing and exploring your life to the fullest potential. And you're also, if you're head of household, you maybe want to be doing that, providing the support to other family members so that they can do the same as well. Um, so how do you reduce the negative aspects of just surviving? That's what having some savings does, mostly in terms of having a reserve fund that gives you the ability to recover from any setbacks or emergencies that you may have. It also provides you some security and stability that, in turn gives you the ability to have a little more brain width, a little more brain power than instead of stressing about your financial situation, but to be able to, take advantage of opportunities that are going to help you move forward in your life. Be able to clear your mind a little bit so that you can see those opportunities when they come up. And be able to take advantage of them. So I know, or I don't know, maybe most of you are maybe familiar with the term living paycheck to paycheck. That's kind of a situation where your income typically covers whatever expenses you have to maintain your standard of living for that period of time. Not so much giving you much room for growth and room for savings. So having some savings is important to that, so that if there's any growth opportunities that come up, or if there are any unexpected situations, you can handle them. So one of the things we want to do is pose a question to you. What do you think, given that you understand you should have an emergency buffer or some emergency funds set aside, what is enough money to have in that to cover your basic expenses for how long? In other words, how long do you feel like it would take if something catastrophic happened, you lost part or all of your income or some other situation arose? Would it be good to have that reserve fund to cover your basic expenses until you could get back on your feet again? The Federal Reserve does a poll every year. Well, they do a lot of polls, but one of the polls that they do every year is they pose a question to a group of Americans asking, if you had an emergency expense of $400, would you be able to cover that expense, either with cash or funds that you have? And we'll put a link in the chat to a report about that, where you could see the entire report about it. They do it every year. But would you be able to have money to cover a $400 expense? And the latest report that they did, the latest poll that they did, said 40% of people responding could not come up with $400 either in cash or in available room on their credit card that they could easily pay off. 40% of Americans could not cover that expense. So that is where having a reserve fund is important. So now we're seeing the results, and most of you, or a majority of you, were saying that 3 to 4 months is an appropriate amount to be able to recover. Some say 6 to 12, some say 1 to 2. I'm sure a lot of people are thinking years given the current pandemic situation. But we wanted you to think about this in terms of how savings is going to work for you, and to be able to support any challenges you have right up to and including pandemic. So let me give you a couple of examples. We have this chart, and just round numbers to make it the example clear. If you have two people where their income is about $3,000 a month, and the expenses that they have, basic expenses for their standard of living, is about equal to that, or $3,000 for the month. You know, basically you're doing a paycheck to paycheck where all of your income is basically covering all of your expenses. In the top example, this person has that income, has those expenses, but also is carrying a debt of $6,000. In this example, if something catastrophic happened that reduced that family's income by 50%, dropping it to $1,500 a month for 3 months, and it took 3 months to recover from that situation, you can see how much their debt would increase as they try to cover basic expenses in ways that would, you know, that they would have to pay off later. And in the first example, I made it that the person was able to recover in April, not only that, but also to increase their income by $1,000. And if they maintain their same level of expenses, they would still have close to $10,000 of debt that they would have to work out. The lower example is the same situation, but it's a person who does not carry debt, but also has a reserve of $9,000. If they were hit in January with a 50% loss of income, they could rely on the money that they have in that reserve to cover them so that they could focus on getting their life back on track. And still in April, when they were back on track, they would still have some funds left to, you know, in their buffer. So how do you do this? What are the ways of keeping on track? What are the ways of having some savings for those things? So we're going to talk through a couple of concepts, key concepts that we use in our program, that we start out at the beginning of the program and we keep them, you know, there throughout the program, a couple of key concepts for how to be able to manage savings. And we're also going to include a few tips and tricks of things to help you work with those concepts that we give you. So the first one that we start out with is the money equation. Looks pretty straightforward. Income minus expenses equals savings. Whatever income you have, you know, you're going to pay off the expenses that you have, and hopefully at the end of that month, if you're doing this on a budget month to month, you're going to have some funds left over that you can put in savings. It seems pretty straightforward, you know, but this simple equation is packed with a lot of significance and a lot of nuance to it. If it was that easy and straightforward, we'd all be embracing it and we wouldn't have a 3-month-long financial literacy program to help you with that. What really actually does happen, what is more of a reality for most people, is that their income and their expenses are not in balance. They may have more expenses than they have income, which the resulting amount is going to be debt. And that debt, we know debt is expensive. It can continue to grow or continue to cost you with fees and late fees and, you know, overage charges. The other way is that your income matches your expenses. And with the extra money that you have left over, you spend it on discretionary expenses, going out to the restaurant, getting those tickets to their concert or their show, splurging on, well, not splurging, but, you know, finally upgrading your motor vehicle, things like that. All of those things can be discretionary. And in that cycle, if you spend all of that you have left over on the plus side at the end of that equation, you start back again at ground zero the next month. You still don't have saved funds. You still don't have a buffer for emergencies. So what we want to do is give you some other tools. You want to ingrain or kind of get that idea of the money equation. You want your income to be far greater than your expenses, and you want to work toward that balance so that you have savings. Now, these outcomes are not mutually exclusive. That's another challenge with this. You can have this equation, the outcomes for the equation be that you are saving money as well as addressing any debt that you have, working your debt down, as well as attending to some discretionary funds. So that's the challenge of adjusting all those. So in addition to the money equation, the next tool that we use is looking at wants and needs. Those discretionary expenses, can fall into the wants category. Those basic expenses, food, lodging, safety, security, paying your rent, all of those things are the needs that you have. Each time an expense comes up with you, you want to just get in the habit of thinking, is this a want or is it a need? That again is another very straightforward concept that can be a challenge for a lot of people. When you look at something that you're about to do, and I will use the example of, it's the end of the day, you're leaving work at 5:30 and you're thinking about dinner with your family. What is it? What is this that you want to do? What is the purpose of it? You want to evaluate the purpose of it. Yes, dinner, food is sustenance. You need it. Everybody needs to eat. What is the value of it? Not only is it sustenance, but having dinner with my family is important. I work long hours during the week, and I want to take advantage of every opportunity to bond with my family, to strengthen my family connections. Expense, that's always a challenge. What is the expense of it? Is it worth is the expense commensurate with the value and the purpose that you have? Parse it out. Sometimes needs can be wrapped in wants and vice versa. Yes, you need to have dinner with your family. Does it need to be that truffle encrusted salmon on a bed of saffron infused quinoa from the local gastropod? Not necessarily. So, you want to work through figuring those things out and coming to them in the best way that you can. Wants and needs are going to be different for everybody. Not everyone's want is going to be someone else's need, and vice versa. So all of those things are going to be things that you will think through as you go forward. And let me just make sure I didn't. So we don't expect people to have a very stoic life. Everyone is expected and deserves to be happy. Self-care is an important part of your life, and it is a need, not really a want. So it should be, you should pay, especially during these times of COVID, where everyone is under a lot of pressure, a lot of strain. You're no good to your family or the people that you are supporting if you're not in the best position that you can be. So understanding some basic principles and embracing some tools and behaviors that work for you and work for your family is going to put you in the best position to be able to, live healthily, live your best way, and grow on top of that. So other things that, now that we have those two basic concepts that you want to internalize and always have kind of in your back of your mind when you're dealing with your finances, we're going to talk about some of the tips and tools that will be helpful for you to, reach the goals that you want to. My colleague Danielle is going to be putting some links in the chat to some of the tools and things like that that might be available to you. But in general, what you're always going to want to do is monitor your spending. Look at where your money is going. It could be something as simple as keeping receipts and the receipts from the ATM and things like that, piling them up in a box and sitting down and reviewing them on a regular basis. Some people use smartphone apps. There's a lot of smartphone apps out there that help you track your expenses. Some credit card and bank statements will give you some report, a pie chart or information like that, that kind of gives you a quick idea of where your money is being spent. Some credit cards will have a pie chart that says this much is what we think is entertainment expenses, this much is what we think are required expenses, things like that. Those can be helpful to you. One of the things that we do spend good time on in our program is reviewing your credit history, getting your credit report and reviewing your credit history. We'll put in a link to the authorized place to get those credit scores annually. You can also check some of the top 3 credit reporting places have eased it, so you can get more, you can pull your report more often than once a year. Looking and reviewing your report isn't necessarily going to create money savings for you, but it is an excellent way, and it's very cathartic to look at what your spending habits has been for 7 years. It gives you an opportunity to step back where you may have made one purchase and it's out of your head in months, or you've become numb to the regular minimum balance payment you're doing on your credit cards or the loan payments that you're making for your student loans. Getting a full picture of your financial profile in that credit report is very telling to you of how you've been spending your money. And cleaning it up going forward and building your own profile is going to be very good. And Michelle will talk about that in terms of future investments. Budgets and budgeting, very important. That's how you're going to be able to keep track of what your income is, what your expenses are that are going out. Have they been changing? Did it creep, just understanding that, okay, your fuel bills will creep up over the winter, but they may be far less during the summer. Being aware of those things and anticipating them. So doing a budget, use the tools that help you to do that. Cell phone apps, just or something basic like having a few envelopes with the expense on it, the dollar amount, and you just kind of work through that each month. Setting manageable goals. You want to set goals for yourself. If you want to set a goal of increasing your savings by X amount, make sure it's manageable. You don't want to say, I want to have a goal of having $30,000 in savings when you can only put away $10 a week. It's kind of like, those diets that you may start and not be able to complete, or those New Year's resolutions that you can't stick to. You want to make your goal setting manageable for what you can do, and keep track of it. There's a lot of project planning ways to do these. We have a goal setting worksheet that we use in our workshops that everyone comes into the program with a goal that they work with their coach on. There's a very strong and useful SMART model that Michelle will refer to and explain a little bit later. You can have financial planners or coaches like we do in our program, or you can even have support groups about things. Whatever helps you manage and pursue your goal is important. And I can't stress it enough, know your limits and match your skills. If you're not good with spreadsheets and computer technology or managing smartphones, go back to the basics. Keep a chart, keep a notebook, things like that. If you're not good at making those manual moves of, I'm going to put this amount into this bank account, most employers do direct deposit for payroll, and they give you an options of where you can do that direct deposit. Put that have that $10 directly deposited from your paycheck into an account on a regular basis. Some banks offer it that they can move it from one account to another if you don't have the option to do it as part of your payroll. Use tickler systems, work with coaches, get your kid to remind you, Mom, it's time to do that, whatever works for you, that is something that you're going to be able to stick to. We would want to, so now that you start figuring out what tips and tools that work best for you, to kind of keep an eye on and make it part of your behavior. Once you start saving, you want to keep those savings safe, and you also want to be able to grow it as well. Starting out, when you're first starting out, and I'm sure Michelle will talk about it, it takes money to make money. So if you don't have any savings now and you're beginning to start that, keep it up, keep it safe, keep it in a place that, it works for you. And there's a variety of options for that, depending on how much or how often you want to access it. If it works for you to put it away, set it and forget it, that's good. If it's something that you're putting in there, but you know you may need to tap into it and you want to have that available, evaluate the options that your banks offer you for savings accounts or interest-bearing checking accounts, money market accounts. Certificate of deposits are great if you can put it away and forget about it for a year. Those also work. And US savings bonds is one way to do it. Those are all ways that you can put your money away. The principal that you put in that is secure. It's not going to go away. And for most of these, or pretty much all of these, they are insured and secured to a certain degree. There are individual retirement accounts. There's workplace retirement plans that usually come in the version of 401ks or 403bs or some kind of retirement situation. Those are good and strong ways to do it. It can be directly deposited from your payroll, a nice set it and forget it kind of thing. Some employers do matching funds for these. Number one way, if that's available, take advantage of it. Even if all you can do is put away $5 a week, it's $10 when your employer matches it, and that's free money. And the only layer that's added to that is these investment accounts have a little more criteria that you need to think about when you're using them. And Michelle will talk a little bit more about those because they are backed by different kind of vehicles. And Michelle will talk more about those. So basically, the value of savings is that it's going to give you some stability. It's going to give you some security so that any unforeseen situations that come up, you can manage them and be able to be your best self in a way that you can move forward and get yourself back on track. It's going to give you the opportunity to take advantage of opportunities that become available to you. All of a sudden that you find that your local college is doing a certificate program in physical therapy, and that's a great step for you as you move towards your career in sports medicine. Having a little bit of savings, maybe accessing some loans, some student loans or grants or scholarships will help you move into that direction. Being able to adjust for your car breaks down, your hot water heater goes, someone loses their job or your income is reduced. That mental health, and Danielle will give you in the chat some reports that talk about the effect that stress has on you, the effect of dealing with financial instability and insecurity, the stress that has on it. It makes it harder and more difficult to have room in your mind to look for those growth opportunities, to take advantage of those growth opportunities. So keep in mind that those are very good things that savings has for you. And even if you have to start small, $5 a week, this chart shows you how if you do that, it just keeps growing, and it keeps growing in a way that you never would expect it. So don't get kind of lost with the trees. The direction that this will go is a long haul, and it's very productive and useful for you. So that's what we have on our end for the beginning parts of this, the managing your savings. And we'll pass it on to Michelle to start talking about the greater opportunities that come with that for investing.
Thank you so much, Sharon. I mean, that was awesome. And savings is an integral part of building wealth, and it's like the baby steps of that. So good afternoon, everybody. Thank you so much for having me here, Shaitia from the Office of Economic Empowerment. Appreciate that, and I'm equally excited to be partnering on this event today with Sharon and Danielle from Budget Buddies. This has been an absolute pleasure. And you guys just shared some awesome content. So I just wanted to kind of quickly cover Just a quick little intro. So my name is Michelle Brathwaite. I'm a regional vice president with Primerica Financial, and I created the Building Black Wealth series, and then collaborated with Denisha McDonald of Our Village Initiative. And so what we wanted to do was to, bring financial awareness and literacy and knowledge to our community so people can build it, protect it, and then most importantly, to be able to pass it down. Because that's what's important. It's all about passing down generational wealth. Unfortunately, a lot of it in our community is passing down generational poverty. So we really wanted to be committed to the community, being to help to bridge that gap on why we're not doing it, and to be able to get the steps to be able to do that. So today, my segment, I'm going to be covering a little bit about investing. And before I talk about that. I mean, Sharon covered some great tips, about savings, and especially that slide where you talked about where everybody had that high percentage of the answering from having 3 to 6 months worth of expenses. The world has changed. Before, the old model was like to have 3 months. Now, because it takes a little bit longer to find a job, to get a job, or collect unemployment or whatever, it's about 3 to 6 months. And if you really want to level up your finances, I mean, if you can do it, the exceptional is to have either 1 year's worth of your expenses or 1 year's worth of paychecks. Okay. So one thing I know about savings, and again, I just really want to stress how savings is a bridge to investing, right? Savings is a bridge to investing. Sharon, I love that you said it and you forget it. This is how you know. This is confirmation when you're working with incredible people of like minds, because that's the same model that I say at our Building Wealth seminars at Building Black Wealth, is that you have to set it and you forget it. Okay, so you want to save for emergencies, right, and for a sense of security, but you want to invest to build wealth and to have financial freedom. Okay, so I'll say that again. You save for emergencies and for a sense of security, but you want to invest to build wealth and have financial freedom. Okay, so I'm going to just go into some of my slides so I can just explain to you a little bit about investing. All right, so now a lot of times, again, I love Budget Buddies because, again, they talked about, this is just a quick little icebreaker, okay? So what I'd like you guys to do is just to read the sentence that you see here on the screen, okay? Read the sentence you see here on the screen, and what I'd like you to do is to read it and then tell me the number of letter Fs that you see, okay? Okay, so that poll popped up rather quickly. I'm not sure if everybody had a chance to read the sentence, but it was to read the sentence and then to count how many letter Fs that you see, okay? Because again, just like a lot of times that people say to me, I don't have any money, or I don't know how to save, or sometimes it just might not, if you don't have a job, then that makes sense, right? But there are sometimes when we are making income and we're just trying to figure out, well, how do we make ends meet, or how do I find that money? And so my job as a licensed professional, I'm a financial analyst, is to help an individual to find money. Just like with Budget Buddies, they work with you, through a series of workshops to kind of help you to be able to find money to save, to get out of debt, to build your credit, all the things that's going to give you a sense of financial security. Okay. But a lot of it, we're not taught this stuff in school. We're definitely not taught it in college, right? So we don't see a lot of things. And sometimes because we don't see with our eyes, we see with our brain. So if we see negative, we hear a lot of negative and things like that, that's what we kind of look for. So if we also can see a way out, some hope, opportunity, or any type of things that may be able to help us move it. It's just funny how the universe kind of opens that up. Okay. So I'm just curious about the poll of how many Fs that everybody found. Okay. All right. Some people said 8. Okay. So 38% of you found 6, 23% of you found 4, and 34 of you found 2. So let's just go over what the right answer is. Again, because a lot of times we can read things 2, 3, 4, 5 times and still miss it. So when it comes to our money, we can't afford to make those type of mistakes. So there are 6. So the F in finish, the F in files, the 2 Fs in ofs, scientific, and the last of years. So it's interesting that, I love to have fun, with this with kids, because a lot of times little kids find all 6. Okay, they just because their brains are wired differently, and they usually listen to exactly what I'm saying. Sometimes adults are like, wait, what is she trying to do? Like, what's going on here? She's trying to trick me. And that's kind of how we navigate the world. But see, when it comes to finances, imagine if we saw our parents struggling, people in our community struggling, we get apprehensive, we don't trust, and so we miss opportunities, especially if there's an opportunity for us to find money to save and to invest, or even just to find a great organization like Budget Buddies to kind of trust that that organization can lead them to a place that they might not be able to lead themselves. So just so you guys can relax, there's nothing wrong with your brain. if you missed a lot of them, the F and of phonetically sounds like a V, so your brain kind of just skips over it. That's like another topic for another day, that we can go into the scientifics and the psychology behind that. But we can go on to the next one. We'll just move forward. So thanks again for participating in that fun poll. Okay, so let's talk a little bit about income. Okay, because income and wealth is different. If we don't manage our income, we'll never get to wealth, right? And so that's why, and if we don't have any income, and unfortunately we'll never get to wealth. So this is why I'm so excited to be here, with the Office of Economic Empowerment and Budget Buddies, because we really want to do our part in the community to be able to make a difference. Okay, so what's income? So it's just money that you earn for the work that you're providing. Okay, so whether you're babysitting, dog walking, you're doing a nanny, you're working as administrative assistant, if you're a doctor, you're a nurse, that type of thing. However, wealth is your net worth. Your net worth is just whatever. It's your assets minus your liabilities. What does that mean? A little simply is that if you were to take everything that you own and maybe sold it and converted it into cash, right? Or you had cash and paid off everything that you owe, AKA your liabilities, that's your net worth. So when we hear about Oprah and Bill Gates, and also what they've been talking a lot about is Elon Musk from Tesla, or even Jeff Bezos from Amazon, because he's worth billions of dollars. So if his net worth is billions of dollars, so what Jeff does, he takes everything that he owns of value. If he cashed it in and paid off everything that he owed, he's still left with billions. So that means he must have a whole heap of a lot more in billions if he's still able to pay things off and still have that left. Okay. So again, it's an abundance of valuable assets that are owned, like real estate, stocks, or investments. Okay, so in the long run, okay, income creates wealth, okay, if it is properly managed. Now it was interesting, so that was one of the steps that Sharon had covered, in that 4-step process that she covered about, again, things have to be manageable. Okay, so if a person may have a huge income, but if it's not saved, they'll still not be able to accumulate wealth. You may have seen individuals like lottery winners, athletes, some actors and actresses that come into all like money, like athletes like 20 million, and all of a sudden they're broke in 5 years, something like that. It's not the income. It's being able to have the tools, like what Sharon covered with you, by putting together a budget, checking your setting and forgetting it, putting a little money aside, okay, whether you're putting in a checking account, savings account, things like that, and then to put it in some other places that's going to continue to generate income for you if that person were to lose their job or whatever. In this particular case, if there's an athlete that has all that high income, a lot of times they're spending it on cars and clothes and jewelry, other people, that type of thing. So it is possible that you can be a high income earner and still lose it all if we don't have the tools made available to convert that income into wealth. Okay. All right, so let's talk about the next thing. All right, so there was a study, speaking of wealth, there was a study that was done in Boston called The Color of Wealth in Boston. This was a powerful and very disturbing article that came out. I remember I was going home to the Caribbean to visit my family, and I remember this report had came out, and there was also which I'll cover in a second. There was also an article that was in the Boston Globe that talked about that. This, it means, so you can see the little graphic there, and Danielle's kind enough to pop the link in the chat. I am telling you, you check that out. It is, unbelievable, and also very frightening. Okay, so here's the type of type of wealth that do we need to build. Okay, so what kind of wealth do we need to build? The first kind of wealth, right, is that some of us have this survival wealth, which just means I have enough money and assets to survive. Okay, so that's just enough to to get by, not really to move forward, but just enough to get by. Then there's transformative wealth. Okay, transformative wealth is I will have enough money and assets to change my situation. So whether it's through work or through my education, that type of things. So how can I transfer my quality of life? So if you have an opportunity, like what Sharon talked about, if you happen to get a scholarship or a grant, or you are able to, your parents put away money for you for school, or you worked when you were 15 and you were putting away all your earned income. That's why I love it when I hear that if you're young and you're still living at home, there are a lot of young people that are taking advantage, not for granted, taking advantage of working home, living at home, because they're able to bank so much money. Okay, then you can go out there and just transform your life by having wealth, by taking classes, going to college, or even buying a home. Okay, then there's democratic or equitable wealth. That means we have enough wealth as a community, and it's distributed evenly and fairly throughout the population, to build and strengthen democracy. I mean, wouldn't that be nice, right? That's why I love, that we're doing our small part here today, with the Office of Economic Empowerment, right, and with Budget Buddies. We're all working together, and we're bringing that equity of the wealth of knowledge to you guys today. So I'm really excited to be on the call. But definitely, if you have an opportunity, check out the article. The next slide, I am going to cover just a small piece, that was in there, but there are lots and lots of data that are in there. Okay, I don't know if you knew this, okay, but they took a poll, okay, and they surveyed all the people of color, all the Black families that are in Boston. And they said that the net worth, now what we covered net worth. Okay, so net worth is your assets that you have, which is everything of value. If you were to cash it all in, according with your cash, checking, savings, all of that, and paid off everything that you owe, you're left with $8. Okay, that's what they said. And I think the numbers might be a little skewed. I think some that number is actually worse, because once you throw in the highest amount of student loans, it's even worse. Okay, so if you look at that here, it says the white households have a median wealth of 247,500. Okay, so we have our Latino brothers and sisters, right? The Dominicans and all the Black families, right? Excuse me, have a wealth close to zero. Okay. Of all other non-white groups for which estimates could be made, Caribbean Black households have the highest net worth at 12,000. My family's from the Caribbean. The mentality might be a little different, back home, because a lot of times we didn't trust banks and things like that. And so we created, and so some of you out there who may be Latino or from Caribbean places, you may have heard of something called Susu and Partner. Those are the type of things that we did to preserve our own income and like our own personalized savings to be able to, buy furniture and pay bills, and things like that. Okay. So again, but still, it's only 5% of the wealth are attributed to white households, here in Boston, in the metro suburban areas. That's what the MSA stands for. Okay, but again, still disturbing. So what do we do? So how do we close that racial wealth gap, right? A lot of it, that starts with knowledge, starts with literacy. That's why, again, I'm so happy, to be here today to share just a small part with you this afternoon in the collaboration, with the Office of Economic Empowerment and Budget Buddies, because again, these organizations are out here, doing their part to kind of close that racial wealth gap, that even if there's not equal pay, you can still have an opportunity to take your income and create savings and then build wealth through investing, which I'm going to cover in the next couple of slides, which is a fun part. Okay. So let's talk a little bit about wealth. I don't know if you seen or heard of the penny story. I love because I do financial literacy workshops for kids, and that's the fun part about the summer. I get to teach kids about money. And the interesting thing is to kind of get the answers. But what I like, and also adults too. So we're going to have some fun today. All right. So what would you prefer? Okay. Would you prefer a penny that doubled every day for 31 days? Okay. Or would you rather have $2 million? Okay. So let's just take a look at that. So would you have $2 million and you can do whatever you want, or a penny that doubled every day for 31 days? So for those of you that picked the penny, let's take a look at what happens, okay? So in the first week, it doubled, okay? Doubled every day, okay, for 7 days, and then ended up with 64 cents. Now, for those of you that may have picked the $2 million, I mean, you might be having fun, getting new furniture, maybe getting a nice wardrobe, that type of thing, okay? But for those of you that picked the penny, let's see what you're gonna look like in week 2, okay? So in week 2, again, it keeps doubling. So I don't know if you want to change your answers, right? And say that, no, skip it. I want the $2 million so you can have a little bit more fun. Okay. Because right now you're only sitting on $81.93. Okay. Now in the third week, I have no idea what where the individuals that kept the 2 million. I don't know how much you still have left, right? But let's see what happened to our friends that picked the penny. Okay. So our friends that picked the penny, third weekend, you're coming in at $10,000. Again, now the folks who have the 2 million, they may be enjoying some vacation safely, okay? Safely somewhere in the Caribbean or someplace, nice and fun. Okay, now let's take a look at in the fourth week. Now this is where things start to get interesting, okay? Because there's something that's called compounding interest that we may not be familiar with. I'm going to cover what that is, okay? So now look at it. So now the penny is starting to catch up. Okay, the penny's starting to catch up. Anybody want to take a wild guess? You can maybe put it into the chat about what it would be at day 31, okay, if you want to. I know our friends out there on Facebook, you may not, right? You may not be able to pop anything into the chat, but let's take a look at what that penny would be. Oh, I saw the face. That's what that was. All the Facebook. Looks like we lost our slide there. But anybody want to take a wild guess about what that would be? Okay, so Tiffany says 6 million. Thanks, Tiffany, for participating. Anybody want to take a wild guess what it'll be after 31 days? Let's take a look, because the screen is back up. Now, all those individuals that picked that $2 million, right? I don't know, you may want to change your answer once you see what happens to that penny on day 31. Over $10 million, okay? You imagine starting from a penny. I bet that will change your perspective of those pennies you see on the ground, right? You may want to start picking those up. Now, only, right, Danielle? The thing is that now, obviously, this is only in the Wizard of Oz, right? We have the penny that doubles every day for 31 days. But imagine if that happened, man, we would value pennies. But the thing is, we still should value our pennies, because the power of compounding interest, which I'm gonna cover with you in a second, is so powerful. Albert Einstein said that compounding interest is the most powerful force in the universe, because again, when you're savings, the pennies add up, but when you're investing, the pennies compound, and that's what you would get if they compounded for every day for 31 days. So that's a powerful slide. It's a lot of fun, but let's take a look a little bit more about compounding interest. So thanks for for participating in that. Okay, so we're going to cover that in a second, but now let's talk a little bit about goals. Now, goals are important. It's not just just when it comes to setting our life goals, whether we want to go to college, get married, make an impact, start a company. It's all goals help keep you focused for the things that you want. Now, the challenge is a lot of times we're not taught how to set goals. We may have dreams and we may wish for things, but here today, we want to show you how you can set SMART goals so you don't wish and hope. The idea is to set SMART goals so you can plan to make them happen, okay? So the first thing is to be specific. So it's not to say, well, you know what, I want to save a lot of money. See, saving a lot of money is too vague. You got to be specific. How much do you want to save? Okay, so what is it that exactly you want to do? So the M in the SMART is measurable. See, once again, Sharon talked about being able to have something that's measurable and manageable, okay? So how will you know when you have reached it? How are you tracking it, right? So it's the same thing, do you have it in a notebook? Are you, again, based on your skill set, like what Sharon had talked about, knowing your limits and match your skills, are you good with Excel and you put it in a spreadsheet, okay? And is it achievable? That's the A. Okay, so again, is it in your power to accomplish it? It goes back to what even Sharon was saying is, again, making it manageable and believable. You can't, I think the analogy that her example she talked about was that you can't say I want like $30,000 in my emergency fund, but yet we're maybe only making like maybe $10 an hour. Now we're not saying that it's not achievable. It just may not be achievable in that time frame that you set. Okay, so that goes into the R about having it be realistic. Okay, having that goal to be realistic, and then again, can you achieve it, and then also when do you want to accomplish it? Now that's the part when it comes to being patient. That time, that darn time, right? Being patient, especially now with COVID. I mean, if you realize that, had you make calls to make a phone call to your bank or your credit card company or student loan company in 2019, you would get somebody on the phone just like that, right? Now you have to be a little bit more patient because it's different. It's a whole different world now. We got to be a little bit patient. So it's the same thing when it comes to savings, but it's also very important when it comes to investing. When we're investing, it's not your time in the market, it's timing the market, your time in it. How long are you going to be in there to accomplish those goals? So we're going to talk a little bit about that next. Okay, so I love helping my clients set SMART goals, and then it's all about implementing it. All right, so remember we talked about compounding interest. Now if you thought that penny story was fun, now check this out. This is a powerful rule. This is called the rule of 72. This here was an absolute game changer. This is why I got involved in my business now. I work really hard. I mean, I'm pretty sure you can put into the chat, if you work hard for your money, right in the chat box, you can put YES. All you single moms that are out there working double duty, okay? All of our Facebook friends out there, again, I see you guys. Again, if you work hard for your money, right, you can put in yes. Even if you listen now, here's the other part. Yes, thank you. Even if you don't have income right now, that you're even working harder, right, to kind of make ends meet, doing what you have to do for your babies or your family. If you are a caregiver like myself that took care of an ailing parent, everybody out there is working hard, right? But the idea is that how do we, when it comes to money, how do we work smart? Just like setting SMART goals, right? We also want to figure out how do we set SMART goals and figure out a way that we can work hard, but what about working smart? Okay, so let's say that you had a goal of getting 2.5 million. So we're going to show you right now how you can do that by setting a SMART goal. But before I do that, I want to talk to you about the Rule 72. So the concept of the Rule 72 is just how fast it's going to take for your money to double. Okay, just how fast it takes your money to double. How you do the mathematical formula for all you STEM folks, right? For those that are great in math, you take 72, you divide that into the interest rate. That's going to tell you how fast it's going to take for your money to double. Okay, so in this example, it's showing that if you take 72 and you divide it by 1.5%, I mean, we wish our checking accounts are giving us that, right? But if your account is doing that, 72 goes into 1.5 48 times. That means you got to wait 48 years for your money to double. That's a long time. You'll never accumulate wealth doing that, okay? 72 goes into 24 times. So that means you got to wait 24 years for your money to double once, and another 24 years for money to double again. But look at 12%. If you got 12% on your money, right? 72 goes into 12 6 times. So that means that your money's now doubling every 6 years, 10 to 20, 20 to 40, 40 to 80, and right around 160, boom, it just takes off and you land at 2.5 million. Okay. So again, this is something that you could measure. Okay, so is it specific? Yeah, if you say, listen, I want 2.5 million. Okay, so that's what you want. You use small little mini goals to, to reach that goal. So you just have to figure out a way using that example that Sharon talked to you about, that micro savings. So you can save, right, the 10,000, and then you invest it. You invest that 10,000, okay, to make it achievable. Okay, so the tools is the investment. So it's savings and investing. The first tool was micro savings. The larger tool is investing. Okay, and then be realistic. So that's why you got to have that long time frame. Okay, that long time frame. You're not going to acquire 2.5 million overnight, but again, you can build wealth through investing. Again, you save for emergencies and for a sense of security, but you invest for wealth and financial freedom. You can be very free with 2.5 million. So let's go on to the next slide, please. I love the rule of 72. You guys, that's just division. I teach that to 8 and 9-year-olds because they know that their divisions and timetables. So hopefully you took a screenshot of that. It's the way you can teach your kids if they know divisions and timetables. Let's talk a little bit about coffee. Okay. So again, again, budget buddies, again, we show you how you can free up money. I mean, again, it all counts. So sometimes you kind of have to sit down and maybe look at your budget and said, do I really need that coffee or do I want that coffee? Maybe I don't need to spend maybe $4 or $5 for coffee. Maybe I can just go to Dunkin' Donuts or wherever you live, Cumberland Farms, and do $1. But let's take a look at how that if you decided to put away the $4, what it can mean in an investment. Okay, so Jane spends $4 a day on coffee, 365 days a year. That's $1,460 just on coffee. If Jane doesn't have the willpower to change and continue that for 30 years, that means that she's going to give Starbucks or Dunkin' Donuts $43,800. Now, remember compounding interest, right? Again, that compounding interest, that 10 to 20 to 20 to 40, the rule 72. Now, what if she, instead of spending the money on the coffee, she decided to invest it? So if she invested that money and she got an interest rate in the investment at 7.5%. Do you understand that she can have $165,000? So it's not just $4, it's $165,000 that she can have just extra in retirement, or she can donate it to a charity or hand it down to her kids for generational wealth. That's why investing is so powerful. Again, you got to get in where you fit in though. Even just like with the micro savings, savings is a great stepping stone to investing. If you're a good saver, you will be a great investor. Again, that way you can build that financial freedom. Okay, so let's talk about what's next. So it pays better to start early. Okay, so imagine if you had $1,000. Again, you did some micro savings. Let's say you did some micro savings. You were saving $50 every single week, or every single month, and you saved $2,000, and you're going to keep $1,000 in your emergency fund. Or maybe you have $5,000 emergency fund, but you just want to invest just $1,000 of it. You can take the $1,000, putting it at 9% rate of return. And people are usually like, where are you getting 12 and 9%? A lot of that you can get just right from your 401k, your 403b, if you know how to pick the right funds. Okay, so that's what I help my clients do. Okay, so let's say you started at birth. Okay, at birth, your parents put that away for you, or a grandparent did. That money is going to accumulate to $406,000 by the time that child reaches age 67. That's a big deal. However, if the parent or the individual just waited until 16, that money is only going to grow. They start at 16, so from 16 years old to age 67, it's only going to be $96,000. You lost all that money, and if you wait until you're in your 40s, you can forget it. It's only going to be like a little over $11,000. Still, it's still something, but has nothing compared to having over $406,000 because you had time working on your side. Again, it's not timing the market, trying to figure out where to get in. You got to get in as soon as you can. And same thing with savings. Savings can begin just as early as 8 years old when you're babysitting or doing your chores. Okay. Okay, so let's talk about the next slide. because everyone's like, well, where do we invest? Where do I begin? How do I get 9 and 12%? You get them through mutual funds. Okay, do through mutual funds. I didn't know what a mutual fund. I grew up with a single parent, Caribbean background. My dad didn't even speak English when he came here. I didn't know the difference between a mutual friend and a mutual fund. Okay, but when I learned about mutual funds in Primerica, I was like blown away. Again, that they weren't teaching this stuff. Okay, so what is a mutual fund? All it is just that investors pool their money together and they give it to a professional to manage the money, which is called a portfolio manager. And what they do, they spread it out into many different companies in different areas. It could be like a pharmaceutical company, it could be a retail company, and they pick all those funds that represent those areas. So your money is spread out very, very, very broadly. It's not like just picking one stock, and if that company goes out of business, you go out of business with it. That's why I love mutual funds. They're a safe way. They're a very safe way. There's still a level of risk, okay, but they're a little bit more safer than just going in the stock. That's why your company has your 401k and your 403b. That's why they only use mutual funds. If you didn't know, that's why they use mutual funds, because they're more safer way to invest. But you got to make sure you pick the right one. And so that's what we do. We help pick the right fund for that individual, because a 20-year-old, their 401k or their 403b or their mutual fund it's going to be different than maybe somebody who's 50, okay, versus somebody who may be 18. So that's what I do. So I show people how to do that outside of their work, if they want to have their own mutual fund, or how to help them do that through their job and through their employer. So it's just a nice, safe way. And you can get all varieties of different companies. Because I didn't know if you knew this, but mutual funds on average have 150 companies inside just one mutual fund. One mutual fund. That's a big deal. Okay, next, please. All right, so what makes a great investor? So again, they're more likely to save, just like we talked about earlier. Men have retirement plan balances that are roughly 50% larger than the average median women's balance, because their mindset's a little bit different. Usually, women want to invest because they're more focused on safety and security, and guys like to take a little bit more risk. Okay, but so what makes a great investor is, again, whoever though, but whether it's men or women, they're most likely to save. As I said before, great savers make excellent investors. Number two, what makes a great investor? Number two, okay, they stay put. Again, you don't want to move your money around. When you're investing, you want to set it and you forget it. Once you figure out what your SMART goal is, again, what do I want? How much do I want? When do I want it? What's, is it achievable? Can I measure it? But also, can I get in where I fit in? Am I doing $50 a month, or am I doing $50 a week? Once you do that, you just set it and you forget it, because you invest for the long term. You save for the short term, but you invest for the long term, okay? So you want to stay put, okay? That's right, you got to have patience. Very good. And number three, you got to ask for help. A lot of people miss that. They don't ask for help, okay? So not only ask for advice, okay? So now women are more likely to use financial advisors, which may be a result of that confidence gap, but they usually listen to the advice that's given. I'm pretty sure all the wives that are out there, they always say sometimes that, women will ask for directions if they're lost, and some men don't, right? Sometimes, it equates that to, to the investing. But again, the idea is that to ask for help, because it's not something that we're taught in high school or college, okay? I took business. They didn't teach me personal finance and business. And if you're a finance major, you would know that they usually teach corporate finance, not personal finance. So what makes a great investor, again, is that they stay put once they set it, and they also ask for help, okay? All right, we're down to the wire here. Here we go. All right, so here's some fun facts. I'm not going to read all of them, just to the sake of time. But again, some powerful facts about women investors. just despite, one statistic that we didn't cover, right, that I'm going to talk about just really quickly is that, especially for the ladies that are out there, the women that are out there, we have a greater need to be, to manage our money, because we live longer than men. They say because, we put them in an early grave, right, driving them crazy, but we live longer than men. And also still in the 21st century, and all the, the liberties that we have, we still make between 25% and 30% less than men. So there's a greater need for us to be able to save money, but also to invest money. But again, just quick, powerful facts. Again, we have become major power players that are making huge impacts in today's financial world. And that's true. We really are. We currently run over $10 million businesses, which with combined sales of combined sales of 1.1 trillion. So we are making our mark here, despite some of the inequities that we face when it comes to for equal pay, or even some opportunities. But again, with the sound principles that we covered today about saving, saving our money, budgeting and tracking our finances, and then taking some of that money to invest, we can then build the ultimate financial freedom for ourselves, but most importantly, we can create generational wealth and also, build legacies for our families. And I believe that that's probably that's my last slide. Okay, so here's some financial from some wisdom of investment wisdom. Successful investing takes time, discipline, and patience. Okay, so no matter how great the talent or effort, some things just take time. Okay, so you can't produce a baby in 1 month by getting 9 women pregnant. And that was spoken by the billionaire himself, Warren Buffett. But it does take time. It does take patience. And so that's why we also like to do what we do to help people. Again, we can't give you the time and the patience, but we can give you the knowledge and the wisdom and the tools that's created to help you to be able to start your investing and your saving journey, so you can have the ultimate financial freedom in your life with lots of options. And with that, I thank you so much for your time. Thank you so much, Shaitia, for everything, for allowing me to be on this segment this afternoon. And the same thing, is just awesome to share the space with our friends Sharon and Danielle over at Budget Buddies.
Yes, it's been a pleasure, and I apologize for my internet issues, but if you could just maybe go to the last slide. I promised someone in the chat box that we would share our contact information. Do you have that slide, or should I share? Yes, there we go. So feel free to reach out to us at info@budgetbuddies.org if you have any kind of follow-up questions. I know we ran out of time, but I've hopefully been answering some of them in the chat box as we've been going along. And so it's been a pleasure to be a part of this. And I hope you all will take those first steps to make 2021 your best finance year yet.